Have you ever heard of that audio clip where it says Laurel and Yanni, except for you hear only one of those. You can only hear Laurel, 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 or Yanni, Yanni, Yanni. And different people can either hear Laurel or they can hear Yanni, okay? And have you ever seen the dress? So half people seeing this picture of the dress can either see a gold and white dress or they can see a black and blue dress. And people are absolutely baffled that people are not seeing what they are seeing and experiencing what they're seeing, okay? And a magic eye. Okay, so a magic eye picture, there is an image on the front, this lovely nice pattern, but if you learn, you can see through the pattern and an image pops out into like a 3D image. Okay, and there's different little ones. Okay, so it's not a picture of fish, it's a picture of something else that jumps out of you. So it's this different way that we can receive and interpret information regarding the autistic spectrum that I want to talk to you today, and something that's called the higher level languages. So first I'm going to read this short little piece of information about communication. Social communication. Autistic people may communicate, socialise and read social cues differently. Some may be highly articulate, while others may be non-verbal or communicate using alternative methods. Whilst non-verbal support needs can be very obvious, the other areas of social deficits and differences may not be. Some people think that because people who can talk and understand the spoken word should not be diagnosed as autistic, as it takes away from those who are non-verbal. Okay, so did that make you think of anything as I read that? I'm just going to read it again, okay? Social communication. Autistic people may communicate, socialise and read social cues differently. Some may be highly articulate, while others may be non-verbal or communicate using alternative methods. Okay, so you can see the difference in the way that I read it. Most people, in the first instance that I read it, wouldn't even have noticed that I was doing anything different than reading it. But the second time I used what's called the higher level languages. So what are the higher level languages? So communication, you can communicate, they're not higher level because they're better. They're not higher because the person using these languages is more intelligent or anything like that. It's simply that they're less concrete. And they include a lot more than people realise. And people on the autistic spectrum struggle with them commonly. In order to be diagnosed autistic, you have to have these social differences. And these are the social differences that are being observed often in an autism screener. So they're looking to see if the autistic or the person uses facial expressions to communicate. Are they reading the other person's facial expressions and using them in communication? Do they use hand gestures? Do they use voice tones? Can they use pitch and changing them? Do they understand that the way you say a sentence can change the meaning of the sentence? Then there's double meaning. You could say there was an American lecturer, which means there is a lecturer that was American, or he was a lecturer of things that are to do with America. So some autistic people just struggle to see the other meaning in the sentence. They can miss what people are implying or saying. Then there's inferences and all suggestive language and in the intent of what somebody is suggesting as they talk. There is also likely versus unlikely in communications of what it is that they're saying through speech and communication that can be completely missed. And there's all suggestive languages that we use in the way that we talk to each other. And oh yeah, I'd love to catch up with you again. You know, for most people that's like, yeah, generally I would like to. For an autistic person, they're like, right, tell me when. I'd like to know when. Commonly that can be received as that, depending where on the autistic spectrum that they are. They can have a literal interpretation of idioms and metaphors. They have difficulty detecting sarcasm and irony. They can have trouble processing abstract or vague concepts. There is challenges with conversational reciprocity, so in turn taking, and then knowing how to hold a conversation and what's socially appropriate, knowing how to begin a conversation, knowing how to end a conversation, knowing what a conversation appropriately would entail, and the to and fro of communication. There's this difficulty with topic maintenance and a tendency to monologue. There's struggles adjusting language style for different contexts of social hierarchies. So there's also processing auditory delays if we're moving into the sensory system, coming into that processing. So having problems hearing what the person's processing, so they can hear but they can't process what the person's saying because of the environment and how that impacts communication. There's obviously difficulty reading between the lines, trouble interpreting or expressing emotional meaning through tone and rhythm, which I've sort of mentioned. And face blindness, that can be a problem, and then not being able to visualize images as well, that can come into it. So that's like an incredibly long list for someone on the autistic spectrum that people often do perceive as, oh well, you're fine, you know, you're mild, you're just quirky, you're a lot of my children, I was told, oh, they're just a genius. And actually there's this massive long list of social differences that they were experiencing. And I just want to give you an example before I finish this of how this can be a problem in school. And this is just one example, there's like so many. But so if a head teacher at school asks a child to run an errand, and this results in being late for the next lesson, and the teacher may turn to the child as they walk in and say, you're late. And the child, a typical child, will go, oh, I'm so sorry, sir, I was running an errand for the head teacher and I didn't mean, you know, I couldn't help it. And the teacher will be like, okay. So, you know, they understand through that unspoken language. The student, on both ends, the student understood that, oh, I'm in trouble, the teacher's cross with me, from his tone, from his stance, from his body language. He could see that this teacher's not impressed with him. So he immediately uses this extra language, this higher level language, to go, I'm really sorry, it's not my fault, I didn't mean to do it. Now, if this was an autistic child, this is what could happen. You know, the teacher, you're late. Yes, I am. Because it's a fact. He didn't ask him anything. He didn't say anything. He doesn't mean, the autistic child isn't intending to be, you know, unkind. And then they say, well, why are you late? Oh, it's not my fault, it's this person's fault. And there's no facial tones, no change in eye contact. And the teacher has totally misunderstood the child's intention in that setting. They might think that they're questioning their authority, that they are rude, that they are, you know, disrespectful for the authority that he has. So this often ends up in the teacher just not liking that child. It might not necessarily be in that situation, but because of the interactions they've had with that child, they'll think, well, he's disinterested, or he's very shy, or he's bored, or so many things that are just not the case. And really, it's this lack of use of the higher level language. So understanding that, it's really important to know that actually that might not be the way that they might be very disinterested and find you quite boring and questioning your authority. But on first meeting an autistic child or getting to know them, there might be this miscommunication between the two of you because of this higher level language's use. Now, neither's necessarily right or wrong, but there's a mind blindness on both parts on the way that they're communicating. The autistic person might just, and many autistic people think, just say it as it is, just tell me, like they get set up for failure a lot of the time. And it's not on purpose, it's literally because that person is always using this communication without even realizing it. So I hope that helps, and you can think of the autistic people in your life and the way that you communicate with them, and see if you can meet them in the middle and explain to each other the way that you communicate, and how, yeah, no, I do say, oh yeah, I'll be 5 minutes, and I don't actually mean 5 minutes, because for an autistic person, that's what they think you mean. Often, you know, it's a spectrum. Obviously, different people struggle with different areas of these higher level languages, but in order to be diagnosed autistic, you need these to have enough of these social communication differences to be there in order to receive a diagnosis, but they may manifest strongly in other areas that might not be this. So not all autistic people and children will struggle with this, but it is very common. Okay, thanks guys, bye.